everyone, my name is Melissa from Inspire Me ASAP. If you are following me on my YouTube channel, then you know that this is my fourth video in my character studies series. In my previous videos, I shared with you an engaging way that I kick off and celebrate my new unit on characters. And I also share with you lessons and tips and strategies of how I teach about characters' feelings and character traits. If you miss these videos, I do highly recommend that you go back to watch those first, as the lessons do build upon each other. I will put the link to them in the description below. In today's video, we are going to continue to dive deep into our study on characters by learning how, why, and when a character changes in a story. Let's get right to work. I'd like to begin the lesson by sharing a personal story about one change that I made with my own behavior. And an example that I share with my students is how I used to drink a lot of soda. In fact, for dinner every night, or with my dinner, not for my dinner, with my dinner every night, I would enjoy a nice can of soda. And after watching a couple of documentaries on the harmful effects that sugar has on your mind and body, listening to some podcasts, reading some books, I really decided that I needed and wanted to make a change. I decided I wanted to stop drinking so much soda. And so I slowly did just that. I first started by drinking unsweetened tea, and then I phased that out and started drinking water. Before you knew it, days turned into weeks, weeks turned into months, and I was not missing my soda with my dinner at all. I was fine just drinking my water. I'd be very clear to share with my students the change that I made, the reasons behind why I made that change, and then how I went about to make that change. So I'm wondering, what is one change that you made that you can share with your students to kick off this lesson? After you share your own personal story, you can then pose the following questions to your students. What change have you made this past year? How has your behavior changed? Why did your behavior change? If students need further prompting or support, you can ask them questions such as, what is one thing that you were afraid of that you're not afraid of anymore? What is one thing that you were nervous about and you're not nervous about it anymore? What used to be really hard for you, but not anymore? Encourage your students to really think about when and how they made the personal change by asking, why did you make that change? How did you make that change? Now, you're going to find that a lot of students are going to want to have a turn to talk and share their own personal story, which are highly encouraged and recommend that you have them do so that they can build upon the success of when they see an example of that in their own stories that they read with their own characters. I then display the learning target for the lesson, and that might sound something like this. I can identify how, when, and why the character changed throughout the story. Younger students may have a learning target that sounds like this. I can identify how the character changes in the story. I have two books that I'm going to give an example of how you can use these two books with this lesson in your own classroom. So the first book is Bad Case of Stripes by David Shannon. That's an excellent story because most younger students are very familiar with that story. They've listened to it before, they've read it before, they know all about Camilla breaking out into stripes. So at the beginning of the story, Camilla did just that. She broke out into stripes, and we literally see the stripes on her body. Although she loved eating lima beans, she didn't eat them. However, there were important things that happened throughout the plot of the story that caused Camilla to grow and change. At the end of the story, we know what happens, right? Camilla allowed herself to finally enjoy eating those lima beans, and she lost her bad case of stripes. I would encourage you to have your students dive deeper by asking them, boys and girls, why and how did Camilla make this change? What events led to this change? Students can then find text evidence to prove their thinking and their answer. Because of Winn-Dixie by Kate DiCamillo is another great example of how you can identify how a character changes. So I used this book in one of my other lessons and a couple other lessons and a couple of my other videos about characters. If we think about Opal at the beginning of the story, we know that Opal was kind of a sad and lonely little girl. However, after she met Winn-Dixie, hence the title of the story, because of Winn-Dixie, and some other characters that became friends throughout the plot of the story, we really saw how Opal grew and blossomed into a brave, friendly, vulnerable, open little girl. She works through her grief of her mom's death. She also becomes friends with little Winn-Dixie, forms a special bond with her dog, and also forms friendships with Gloria Dump, Otis, and other important characters in the story, which all of these events led up to Opal's change. You can ask your students to dive deeper, such as why or when did Opal make this change? Was it little by little by little throughout the entire story? Or was it poof all at once? Let's find our evidence in the text that proves our response. After working together, using an example together as a class, you then can have your students use their own stories and identify how the characters in their books are growing and changing from the beginning to the end of the story. If you have some students who need additional support, you can meet with them in a small guided reading group and provide them with a familiar text that they will be successful with, guiding them through the process, providing them sentence frames. So you might say, boys and girls, use this frame to help you. Blank was blank at the beginning of the story. At the end of the story, the main character was blank. He or she made this change because fill in the blank. I sure hope that some of the ideas presented in this video are ideas that you can take and share with your own students in your own lesson. And if you enjoyed this video, I certainly hope that you can hit the like button and subscribe to me so that you are not missing out on any other of my future videos. Thank you.